G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Christie David, and I run a mortgage broking business called Atelier Wealth, where we help specialise in helping property investors start out and scale up their investment property portfolio. As part of being an ambitious property investor, one of the tools you want to have in your tool belt is really knowledge, and that comes down to knowing who to talk to, but also being able to pick their brain and go, give me your knowledge, and selfishly take as much as you possibly can. And that's what we aim to do with our podcast, is to get what I call best in breed. So whether that's buyers agents, real estate agents, financial planners, accountants, anyone that's going to come on that journey with you, be able to get their knowledge out of their heads and into yours. And as part of today's episode, we're joined in the studio by Tim McGoldrick from McGoldrick Real Estate Agents.
Yes, McGoldrick Estate Agents.
There we go. Change of name.
It has been.
And we'll talk about the freshness and the change of name that's come to yourself and your business. But Tim, I just want to say thanks very much. We've had the privilege of knowing each other for quite some time.
Yeah, just a little while.
And seeing your business grow, your success on a personal front,
yes,
family, and also on a professional front as well. That's probably what I want to start with you.
Yeah, no problem.
Tell us about Tim McGoldrick's story. I know that personally property runs in the blood.
Yeah.
Having your dad run.
Yeah, it has. So
real estate agency business.
For us, or for me personally, I've always been around the industry. So my family business originally was Elders Real Estate in Bury, and has been in operation currently for about 35 years.
Unreal.
Yeah. So
my really stood the test of time in such a good tight.
It has. Yeah. And Bury was never always seen like that. So it was a bit of a gamble. My old man was working sort of in the Nowra market and thought, hey, I might open up in Bury, and sort of went over there and did that, and it worked out really well.
Yeah.
And for us, I got into the business probably 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
Sort of did 12 months after high school, and really had always wanted to get into the business, and sort of took that 12 months to get into a bit of retail, get used to talk to people and that sort of thing, and sort of give me that next step into dealing with people that are making pretty big financial commitments and decisions and things like that. So, from there I got into Bury and went to Sydney for a while as well. So I was working in Chatswood, and then started working in around Alexandria, Green Square, that sort of market.
Yeah.
Did a lot of off-the-plan sales for developments. One of the last ones that I worked at there was a building called Apex, which is near the Audi dealership. And then decided to come back down to the South Coast because it's too good, and didn't like Sydney anymore. So
it's a very similar story that we've got, which is Sydney. I mean, Sydney boy, but I guess once you want to spread your wings, or maybe think about family, or think about lifestyle as well, it's the South Coast calls, and once it's kind of got its grip on you, there's no turning back, is there?
Yeah, and it's hard coming from here, and you probably don't appreciate it as much when you're younger, but then coming back, you sort of see how good it actually is.
Isn't it? Yeah, I think we're super blessed. I mean, this whole country, I say what a privilege it is to live in this country, but to be on the South Coast and to be where we are, it's definitely a privilege that we don't take for granted.
Yeah, 100%.
And especially now you've got young family.
Yeah, and they're enjoying the benefits of it, but just having the access to the thing. Somebody described it to me recently, was the thing that I probably look at now is when you come to the South Coast, you can live the life that you want to live. If you want to have the farm, you can have a farm. If you want to be by the beach, you can be in a coastal property. If you want to be in a bigger environment, whether you're in Wollongong or you go to Kiama, it's a little bit busier. Or if you want the quaint little town, you're in Bury or any of the other little South Coast villages that are around there as well. So, whatever you want, you can find. I
think you just smashed it there with the V word, which is the village feel.
Yes.
And I think that really attracts people. I say, look, in Sydney, you probably have Balmain or Mossman, and they call themselves villages there as well. Maybe Coogee has that little villagey feel, a bit more commercial now. But you look at the village feel, and I think that's what the draw card is. You can't create that. That's there naturally, and it's built over time. And anyone that comes through Bury, everyone gets out of their car, don't they?
They do, It's a destination, and it has been for a while. But I think just recently, the amount of effort that, say, the Chamber of Commerce and Tourism and things like that, the spotlight's really been on Bury, and the amount of tourists we see there on a weekend, it's just phenomenal.
And that's really where I want to go. At the heart of this episode is I'd call it maybe the tree change effect, and heading down the South Coast, which is such a corridor that's gone through rapid change, rapid expansion, a real shift, not only in price, but also people, in terms of the demographics that are living there. And then we've had a lot of investors that have looked down there as well, with an eye on the South Coast. So what I want to do is kind of put that South Coast under a bit of a spotlight, because you've got such a unique perspective, kind of being able to operate a fair bit down the South Coast. So, the idea behind your rebrand, if we can just touch on that for a second.
Yeah, it's something that I've probably wanted to do for at least the last 10 years, and had just been sort of working on it. There's been a lot of different versions of what we were planning on doing, different names and that sort of thing. We just thought, you know what, let's just put our name on it, and go for it. We've been around a long time, and McGoldricks have been associated with real estate on the South Coast for a really long time. So we thought that was the best natural path to take with it. For us, that change happened probably about 2 months ago. It's been received really, really well in terms of just brand recognition was instant, and just people within the community sort of knowing that they can work with us and who we are, rather than sort of being hidden behind sort of a major brand and that sort of thing.
Oh, excellent, mate. So it's a huge vote of confidence, not only when the community accepts you, but also when you go, look, I can put my name to it. And it says a lot about, this is a family business that stood the test of time, and now you're putting your own family name to it and standing behind it. So congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Well done. Perfect. Looking at the South Coast market, and we're being fortunate to have a chat to a couple of agents that service the South Coast, but you're that next corridor further south, right? Pre-COVID and then post-COVID. Take me through the shift.
It's been interesting.
Yeah.
So pre-COVID, market had been performing pretty well.
Yeah.
And obviously we had some ups and downs probably over the last decade. For me, so that 2017 stood out as a pretty good time in the market.
Yes.
Nothing compared to what we've had in the last 2 years, but that was still a pretty strong market. It softened off a little bit, and then once COVID came around, I know a lot of people panicked, and especially me as a business owner, I got fairly concerned as to what was going to happen with everything. You had no idea what was going to happen.
And then the phone started ringing, you're like, well, hang on.
Pretty much, yeah. So we were in lockdown, and obviously everyone's trying to do the right thing. So we weren't going to the office, working from home, but then the phone just didn't stop, and it was people, and obviously we were allowed to show property at that point for people who were just wanting to buy. There wasn't any of the restrictions that we had later on in the second lockdown. But the amount of inspections that were happening, and people were just making offers. And I think what came down to with the work from home orders that came through, that a lot of people sort of went, well, you know what, I don't need to live where I work anymore. And as long as I've got a good internet connection, what am I doing up here when I could be down on the South Coast? Yeah.
Excellent. And the demographics that started to shift, because you would have seen, these are real community changes now, right? There's people come in, not only does the median house price go up, but certain new neighbours then start to come into the area. So take me through, what did you see?
We saw a varied demographic shift. So there was a lot of young people probably in the earlier stages of this increase of the market. Yeah. When housing was, at the time, we thought we were getting really good results, but in hindsight now, that was still super affordable. So we were getting a lot of young families coming down that wanted to bring their kids up down on the South Coast rather than being in Sydney. Looking at the smaller acreages, whether or not they were sort of getting 5 acres. I had some people buying 100 acres, but getting really good bang for their buck for what they were coming down for. And then that probably progressed into probably the 40s to 60s, whether or not they were retirees or pre-retirees sort of coming in with 5-year plans. And that obviously pushed the market even that little bit more, people coming with a little bit more money behind them. And we've seen it in the results of median house prices and growth in the area of what the effect of that was. Yeah,
that's a huge owner-occupied centric conversation as well. Investors? Were you seeing investors start to move in? Because it's such a high price point, the yields maybe aren't as strong, so it's not attractive at the moment.
Yes.
But where I look at this market particularly is we have a lot of clients that are Airbnb investors, for example, right?
We did get that.
You look at, I look at Lura as an example. We look at the far south coast with the beaches, Jervis Bay. We look at Berry, for example. Southern Highlands is another example where it's like these are within heading out that corridor, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours south of Sydney.
Yeah.
Great for weekend.
Yes.
Great for Airbnb.
Yeah.
So were you seeing, and because you've got a property management arm?
Yeah, we do. So we've got property management, but we've also got holiday accommodation. So we've got a business called Berry Getaways.
Yep.
So we look after, currently it's sitting around 60 to 65 holiday homes, sort of immediately around Berry.
Yep.
What COVID did for that was phenomenal. After that first lockdown and everyone was allowed to start travelling again, people couldn't find gaps in the calendars to come down and stay. It was midweeks, it was weekends, it was back-to-backs, it was crazy.
Yeah.
It has calmed down since then, but the weekend for us, Berry is very much a weekend trade, and the South Coast is very much a weekend trade. If anybody's out there and they want to have a look at sort of data on holiday accommodation and that sort of thing, there's a website called airdna.co, and so you can take subscriptions to that. It can give you ideas of seasonalities and whatnot. So it's a really good resource, and we use it a lot just to try and educate people as to how the market's performing.
Great, thanks. Yeah.
But yeah, for us, the weekends, the big bookers for us. We don't get a lot of midweek stuff. But yeah, if people are looking for that sort of investment, it's still going really, really strong. There are lots of people still not wanting to travel offshore, and being that we're super accessible to the Sydney marketplace.
Yeah.
It's only a 2-hour drive, and it's only getting better with all the infrastructure changes that are happening at the moment. That it's just, everyone's coming down to see us.
Perfect. We've had clients that have gone down the Airbnb route, done well, got some exceptional results.
Yeah.
But there's also been, I guess, tips for new players that they didn't expect, whether that was, there's more foot traffic coming through, so the wear and tear on a property, for example, having a team, like something goes wrong with taps. They need a handyman.
The cost of running a property for us, I say to people when they're looking that you've got to expect that you're probably only looking at a take home at about 50% of whatever the booking fee is. By the time you take in agents' fees, so they vary anywhere from probably 16 to 20%. I've heard some agents charging 25%. And then you've got your cost of your cleaners, you've got maintenance, you've got lawn mowing, you've got damages, that sort of stuff. Any good agent should be taking bonds and claiming on those bonds for any of those damages, so that should be sort of taken care of. But it does cause an increased wear and tear. For some people, going down the more traditional path of having a full-time tenant in there might be the better option for them sometimes. But it depends on what lifestyle they want to have with the property. And obviously with super requirements, you shouldn't be staying in the properties. But if you are paying for it yourself, then you get the benefit of being able to come and utilise the holiday house.
And this is, again, the holiday house conundrum is when you want to go down for holidays is generally the peak periods as well.
You get in early, book out your calendar, plan ahead and try and take those good weekends for yourself. Which, you give up good revenue if you want to be in your own holiday house, but you bought your own holiday house for a reason. So again, just wrestling with that, I think there was a really good article recently that I saw is potentially those areas, if people are mortgaged up to the eyeballs, for example, which I don't think a lot of those households are, but the odd occasional holiday rental, they're generally the ones that will maybe sell first over their owner occupied. So again, the coastal high price points of far south coast may just start to come off the boil a little bit. Most of our owners that we have through our business, you can identify some that you can tell, okay, this has to be a money-making venture for them versus others that are a lot more relaxed about, who's coming through and that sort of thing as well. For those guys, I think they've generally been in a position where we're now talking, say within the Berry region for these styles of properties that they're having, it's pretty hard to buy even a house in town in Berry for sub $2 million at the moment. And then once you start going out onto those lifestyle properties, we're talking probably $3.5 million up to $6-7 million. So I don't think it's going to have too much of a bearing on those buyers, but if you're in a different marketplace, I could definitely see how that would come into effect.
Perfect. And Berry, looking at Berry as a particular area, what has driven such a, because it's held its value and it's gone up, it's done really well. What is the strength of that property market, for example, say compared to you head further south and 10-15 minutes down the road, you don't have such a high price point, right? So I talk about people buy the suburb and they want to live in that suburb. You have these marquee areas. You go to Sydney, there's marquee suburbs that people want to live in. where 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes down the road, you don't have such a high price point. Take me through that.
Yeah, so I think for Berry, it's probably been the gentrification of the township, whereas it used to be a sleepy little sort of go get a little weatherboard, farmers, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas now people are coming in, they're spending a lot of money on renovating, on improving the facilities that they have at their own homes. And then that also attracts the businesses into the township as well that are pushing to that next level, that are drawing the crowds in as well. And I think that's just coupled with infrastructure improvement, like we spoke about outside of this, was the highway and things like that. So the ease of access into town, and Berry being a destination versus some of the other little villages that are around. I just think that it just pushes a lot harder than what some of the others do, and the people that are driving that as well.
Yeah. You just, again, you mentioned there about infrastructure, and it's one of the big questions that I had for you, because as an investor, one of the big lead metrics on where a property may start to appreciate or area may start to grow is government-backed infrastructure. So you talk about the Berry bypass, and I think when we had a chat years ago was, what's that going to mean for Berry businesses? Because you could literally just bypass Berry, whereas before 100%. It used to be like a crawl, and you had to. You had to go through. You had to go through.
But I think I don't want to call it a trap, but it almost feels like a trap now, because people don't know what the town is doing. You have that option to go around, but people sort of on the approach go, well, let's just stop in and grab a coffee. Yeah. And it's absolutely heaving, but you've got no idea until it's too late, you've already pulled in. And so it's, I think there's that part of it. And just the, Berry was a destination before the highway bypass. And I think if you're a town that was struggling and then you had a bypass, it'd probably kill off the town. But I think that because Berry was always so popular, it's only just improved it. And we've had the new play park put in as well. And the attraction of that place has been phenomenal. Like the amount of people are there every weekend. And there's just money being spent in the area. The bypass, obviously, we've had from the Gerringong to Berry, that's been completed. The next stage of that is Berry to Bomaderry. And that's going to be done at some point this year. I think they're waiting for a bit of warmer weather to finish off the road surface. And then the other infrastructure you've got is 10, 15 minutes down the road. The Woolies, Aldi and places like that are starting to pop up. So we have got our little local IGA, which is great. But if you do need to go for bigger services, that they're only just down the road as well.
Yeah, definitely. And then we talked about, you just mentioned about Gerringong to Berry. Did infrastructure affect
Gerringong? Yeah, a little bit. So at the time, in terms of commercial leases and things like that, I think some of the shops did do it pretty hard after the road opened up, because a lot of the traffic that used to, like as you came down the south coast, you could either choose to go to Berry or you'd choose to go through Gerringong and go along Bowlong Road and come back into Nowra. And I think a lot of that shift of traffic ended up going to Berry, and then Gerringong sort of dried up a little bit. But in terms of what I think COVID fixed that for them.
100%.
And you look at people that wanted that South Coast beach escape, and Gerringong was just sitting there ready to go. So
quiet, less traffic. Ticked all the boxes.
Good buying and great outlooks, and
perfect. I love having real estate agents on because whether you're buying your own home or whether you're buying an investment property, you have to deal, unless you buyer's agent, you're involved in that, you have to deal with the real estate agent. And quite often there's this misconception or a bit of a fallacy to go, the agent's the enemy, for example, or I don't know how to engage the agent, or how do I then enter a negotiation? Because let's be frank here, you've been I don't know, if I do the numbers, thousands of sales. You are a seasoned negotiator. You know how to sniff out the good buyers from the bad buyers and the great buyers, for example. So your trained eye and ear is then going, okay, I know this person's legitimate, or I know, we're going to come to a win-win.
If you know if they're going to go the whole way, or
you know this person's not an active buyer, what I call maybe a passive buyer, for example, and they're just shopping the market.
They're in a research stage of their development.
So I'm often asking agents, so that people don't have to hear it from me, how does a buyer put their best foot forward when dealing with a real estate agent?
Yeah, for me, we obviously deal with quite a lot of buyers, and obviously we've got a lot of different price points of what we have on offer, because we go from houses in town to the big lifestyle properties and large acreages. So we do work with a varied group of buyers through the process. My advice to a buyer is to always be communicating with the agent. because we deal with so many people, it is hard to always just make sure that you are servicing buyers as best as you can, because there's just so many points of contact. And as long as you're in the face of the agent all the time, it's very hard to get forgotten about if that's the case.
So let's put that, go back a step, because you've got a suite of properties that you're marketing or selling. As a buyer, I've got my eye on maybe one or two properties, and so that's all I've got. And I think the agent should be like constantly
talking to you.
Whereas you're saying, mate, flip it around. The agent's time.
Be in their face.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Whereas we think we're pestering the agent by being in front of them.
No, I like it. And I like it when somebody is trying to be in my face, because it's very hard to forget that person. Whereas if somebody just rings me and says, oh, hey, here's my details. Like, obviously I've got systems in place to try and service that person. Yeah. But if somebody's in my face a lot more than somebody who's just gone for one inquiry and they'll remember me, it can change the result. As much as most agents probably wouldn't want to admit that. But if somebody's in your face constantly and something comes up and you go, oh, I know Joe Blow was looking for that sort of style of place, they're going to be the first point of contact. Yeah. We're there to put deals together. And
that's exactly it. It's what I call the win-win-win. Yeah. So it's a win for the vendor, because that's ultimately who you work for and who you get paid by. But you're thinking about the buyer experience. So you want to win for them, so eventually they think of you in the future as well. And a win for you as a team and as a business, going, hey, we've got a great result here as well, and it's something to celebrate and share. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, nice. So negotiation-wise, let's go there. So I want the secret sauce, for example, and go, how does someone make a successful offer? Because again, that's one of it's fairly new to them. Yes. But again, you're dealing with successful offers day in, day out. I think we just had to mention before that you've sold a bucket load of properties kind of this week, right? So success just kind of breeds more success. Yeah. But what's the way that I go about making a successful offer that I know that that's going to get your interest as well?
I think being educated on the marketplace is obviously hugely important for any buyer that's coming in. When you're dealing with an agent, and having just gone through this at the start of the year when we bought a new place, being very clear and concise on where pricing's at, I think is super important. For anything that we sell, we always give a price. I don't like sort of, it's around this or it's around that. This is the price. Yeah. And if you can get to that point with an agent, I think you're going to have a lot more success, because you just
to throw it out there a little bit, because sometimes like you tell me, you've just mentioned that you bought your property. Yes. Bernard and I bought last year, and it was a similar experience going through it. Just going, it was a nightmare. And I feel like it's because it's so close to home for us. And we do this we're involved in this daily. It's like, put ourselves last. Yeah. And that was one of the kind of pet peeves was, you tell me a number. And I'm like, well, I don't know, mate. You're the agent. You tell me the number.
Yeah. And my thing is, like, having been in the industry for so long and knowing that, like, you're having these discussions with your sellers, you're signing up agency agreements with them. Your agency agreement stipulates what your opinion is on the price. The agency agreement stipulates what the owner wants for the house. For any agent that's sitting there going, we don't know, like, you sit there going, well, you should know. You're the expert. Yeah. And I get that what they're trying to do is encourage that offer and try and build it from there. But I think trying to get that clear and concise price point from an agent will help you massively in being successful as to where you go with it. Yeah. Because if you're 200 grand below where the expectations are, you're just never going to get there, and you're wasting your time.
Yeah. Yeah. Spot on. And it's not being clinical, because a lot of clients may look at a CoreLogic report or
I would take that stuff with a grain of salt.
Absolutely, right. It's maybe there to show recent sales, but where the market was 6 months ago, where it was 6 weeks ago, to where it will be in 6 months' time.
It's shifting weekly at the moment.
It's shifting, right? So I'm like, you just can't rely on a static property report to give you that insight. Yes. That property that sold was superior for that reason. I think opening that discussion with a real estate agent, going, we're looking at these recent sales. We feel it's somewhat here in the ballpark. Yes. What's your vendor's expectations? Yeah. And again, even just talking, and we speak about this in our business, talk terms, don't talk dollars.
Package the deal together, talk about settlement dates, talk about inclusions and things like that. I'm currently working on one at the moment where what are we, 75 grand apart from doing a deal on it. Now we're starting to talk right on mowers. We're talking outdoor furniture, things like that, to try and build that deal up to get the buyer from where they are to where we need them to be.
Beautiful.
And this is from a seller who had been with another agent for quite some time, has recently come over to me, and we've now got them more in realistic expectations of where they're going to be price point as well. So they are repositioning their expectations on price, and now I'd say we'll do a deal on it today. So,
fantastic!
Yeah,
congrats.
But it's packaging. Like you've got to think of, it's not as clear cut as here's the price. Are we going to pay it? It's, well, what else can we do to bring the deal together? Yeah.
Through the lens, that's you as a real estate agent, and then through a buyer's agent, because you've got that.
South Coast Buyers Agents. Another business of mine. So I actually prefer that side of the business than the selling part of it. I find the process of buying a lot more fun than the process of selling. Because you are, and for anybody who wants to use a buyer's agent,
huge advocates of buyer's agents.
Yeah.
Partly because they can take the brief. You will buy 100%. What I say wholesale almost, because you're buying and you've got those relationships. Versus I'm buying retail, which is I'll buy one off through one agent, and that's very much the transaction. And for us, or for me, the relationship you build with a buyer as a client, as a buyer's agent's client, it's just a fun process. Like you're on the team and they're on your team, and you're working towards a common goal. And you have availability of everything at your disposal. Like we can talk to numerous agents, and obviously being in the industry and being known to always be there is that if somebody is employed a buyer's agent to find them a home, they're a serious buyer. Because they're paying for the service. So if I ever have a buyer's agent come to me, I know, well, okay, here's somebody who's ready to go, because a buyer's agent wouldn't take them on if that wasn't the case. They've got to be pre-approved.
Exactly.
They've got to take generally a commitment fee. So there's skin in the game at the start. They're not really kind of just throwing an offer out there and going to disappear.
No, that's it. Yeah, and the commitment fee, like the buyer's agent doesn't get paid until after exchange, but they are paying a small fee up front to get that buyer's agent working for them. So if a buyer's agent comes to me looking for property, I know, okay, let's try and find this person a property because they're a genuine buyer that's ready to go.
Excellent. Very good. Perfect. Investor-wise, so through the buyer's agency model as well, you probably have worked with investors as well. So what's kind of their brief, especially buying on the South Coast, for example? For sure. What's attracting them to the South Coast?
So for a lot of the investors that we have coming through, it can be more long term than anything else. So obviously getting the returns great, but they're also sort of thinking, well, if we set this up for the next 5 or 10 years, where's this property going to be in that? After that time, is it something that we potentially might want to retire to? Is it, what is happening in the area that's going to push that price up? Where are other buyers coming from, and what's that accessibility like as well?
Because the South Coast is a unique one, because you've got 2 hours from Sydney, but in some parts you've also got kind of 2 hours from Canberra.
Well, you're only 2.5 hours from Canberra. So for us in Berry, we don't get a big Canberra market, which I find really, really surprising. It's just that extra half hour for some reason just stops them coming so much as in terms of buying in the area. They might come for a weekend and that sort of thing. But
you don't see too many Canberra license plates around there.
But you start going to Ulladulla and you start going to Bateman's Bay, and you'll start to see all the Canberra number plates around there, all the hail damaged cars for a while. So that was pretty bad. But you head down to Bateman's Bay, and I recently transacted on one in Surf Beach for some clients through my buyer's agency down there, and they were looking for the holiday accommodation close to a beach, sort of within that Bateman's Bay area, but they were even looking further south as well, down to even Moruya. And I sort of just, talked them through the process of what they should be looking for. They've now put that on Airbnb. They're getting plenty of bookings. They're using it themselves. So they're happy with how that's turned out.
Great. There's another suburb that gets a lot of attention, Narooma. I've had quite a few hallmark buyers. Jerry Harvey, I believe, is bought down there. There's a Maryvale venue down there as well.
Yeah, there is,
what's the attraction?
Justin Hem's been buying up plenty of stuff down there. So Quarter Deck, and I think there's 2 other venues he's bought. So,
so I mean, that really puts it on the map going, well, it's like when Westfields moves into an area, there's got to be something about this particular area.
Exactly. We went down there on a family holiday, second week of the last school holidays for a week, and it's beautiful down there.
What's the attraction from that type of perspective?
I think there's an improvement of what's on offer there, and I think that, like we talked about with Berry, where sort of that money is attracting more money, and so things are improving. The accessibility is great down. The natural beauty of the area is fantastic, and I think that's just what it is. It's just people now, in terms of investment, might have looked at the Shoalhaven 12 months ago or 18 months ago and gone, oh, this is pretty affordable. All of a sudden, that median house price is jumping up.
Yeah.
And then so the search broadens that little bit further, and you start pushing into Bateman's Bay, and the Bateman's Bay market's still going really good down there. Like I talked to quite a few agents through that marketplace because of the buyer's agency work that I do. And they're still, they're selling stuff prior to marketing, they're selling stuff at auction. It's still pushing really, really well because they're not only picking up the traditional Canberra market that they had, but now Sydney buyers are starting to look into that area as well.
Yeah, I guess from a Sydney, even like north of Wollongong area, it becomes very attractive from a price point and bang for buck, doesn't it, as well? You're not really that far away from amenities should you need to come back up.
No, well, you've still got the airport at Maruya and that sort of thing. If you do want to fly in or fly out, you can do that.
Yeah.
But the beaches and the natural beauty of the area is, phenomenal down there.
Yeah, wonderful. Tim, also thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate it. I often say I get really selfish because I get to get a lot of this knowledge and to be able to pass it on to a lot of our listeners. Really fortunate to kind of have you come in and share that knowledge and insights with us, mate. Really
too easy. Excellent. Thanks, mate.
Wonderful. If you want to reach out to Tim and the team at McGoldrick, we'll include his and their details as well. So if you're thinking, I want to explore the South Coast, for example, from a buyer's agent investment perspective, or you're looking at particular areas such as Berry, Tim and his team have the knowledge, have the resources and the expertise as well. So highly, highly recommend reaching out to Tim if you're keen. And if you found this episode helpful, we'd love, leave us a review or reach out with any other thoughts or questions you've got that we'd love to answer for you as well. So that's a wrap for another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. I've been your host, Aaron Christie David. Until next time, take care.